Hey, look, it's time. It's time for a show. Oh, man. Oh, oh. Ah. Okay, I'm good. I promise. I got coffee ready. And here we go. In three, two, one. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. And today is Tuesday, January 14th, 2020. That's right. Half the month is already gone. My name is Jeremy. This is my first cup of coffee. That's good stuff. Well, yesterday was possibly one of the most productive Mondays I've had in a very, very long time. It was great. Um, so, what happened? We're working on taking the book world by storm, apparently, as we continue to roll out more and more podcast transcripts and other things that we've had honestly laying around as books. I did not realize books should be such a priority, but they should be. They are. Eh, Excuse me. And we identified a couple more things yesterday. I almost had one of them ready, but handed it off to somebody else on the team because it was taking a while. And what I like about what we're doing with these books is that we're doing them at like the minimal cost, and it's just meant to be a entry point into what we do for Whistlekick. It's, hey, come check out what we do. Read this interview and then come check out what we do. And I'm learning there are some people who just prefer to consume things visually. They want to read rather than listen, and that's totally fine. And I think I underestimated how many people appreciate having the same information in different forms. I forgot that just because I prefer a podcast, just because I don't want to read, not everybody's like that. So we got books coming out the wazoo. Well, what else? What else did I do? I started watching a movie, a documentary recommended by a friend called The Work, and it's about this men's group therapy program in, I think it's at Folsom County Prison, if I'm remembering correctly. Stacy asks, where exactly is the wazoo? I will let you infer wazoo as you see fit. Wazoo could be many places. Um, so I started watching that last night. Um, we had a great meeting from Marshall Journal. We had an editors meeting. We haven't had one of those in a long time. For those of you who may not be familiar, marshalljournal.com, it's a whistlekick project, but it's not. It's meant to be somewhat separate, at least the online version, which is currently the only version. And we've been kind of floundering. Um, and I wanted to fix that. And not floundering because anyone's not doing their job, but because it's hard to run an organization. And Marshall Journal runs as a separate organization with so many separate parts when no one is paid. It's entirely volunteer. I pay for all the server space and everything. So if any of you out there are interested in writing, check out Marshall Journal. But we're going to be making a big push to bring in some new writers and adjust some structure, and hopefully that helps because it's a great project. It's a great idea, and the ultimate goal is that it becomes an online home for all sorts of martial arts content, so people can find writers that they're interested in and just a place for people to hang out and read about martial arts. And there's still good stuff that's coming out. It's just not as frequent as I want. What else did I do? Worked more on the at-home strength and conditioning program, and I'm really happy with how this is going. I am super excited. On Friday, I'm going to be picking up Justin Sweeney, who is a member of Team Whistlekick and also the force behind 2 Minute Martial Arts. I kind of handed that off to him a while ago, maybe a year ago, and said, Justin, will you do this? And it's got a following. It's a small, but it's a dedicated following. And it's all under this heading of how do we provide thoughts on programming and content for physical stuff in the martial arts without saying, here's how you kick, here's how you here's how you get a better split, and people watch those videos, but they're so gimmicky, and I don't want to make that stuff. I want the stuff that we do to be a cut above. And so Justin's my collaborator on this project, and we kicked around some ideas and a framework a couple weeks ago over the phone. And then we agreed we would work out as many of the details as we could, and we would come back together and take the best parts from each. Well, I'll tell you, what we've got going is great. I'm really happy for it. Stacy says, Justin is awesome. I'd never have met him if not for Whistlekick. I would have never met him if not for Whistlekick. He's a great guy. In my mind, he's a kid. He's 18. He's an adult, but he's a kid because he's younger. And honestly, people that don't act really old are kids to me. Sounds weird to say, but I also can't believe I'm 40, so don't trust anything I say around age. I feel like I'm 25 most of the time. Definitely act it. What else did I work on yesterday? I don't even remember. But I was busy. Oh, watered the plants, did all the Monday stuff. Water the plants, clean up the house, litter box, those sorts of things. Mailed out some boxes of product. Yeah. Well, we got some questions, and instead of me just trying to ramble through what my day was, let's talk about these questions. Oh, what's today? Oh. So recording what will become a new thing, a new collaborative project with another podcast that I'm not going to tell you about. And then this evening, I'm recording with a guest that many of you will know of. He is from the golden age or blood and guts era of the martial arts. It is not Chuck Norris. But when you think about who we have talked to and who we haven't, there are only a few options. You're welcome to guess. I won't tell you who it is, but this is one that I've been looking forward to, and hopefully, we're still trying to round out. There are a handful, right? There are not even that many, maybe a dozen names from that era that many people know. And we've talked to Bill Wallace. And we've talked to June Ray. And unfortunately, we can't talk to Joe Lewis because he's passed away. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to this guy. This guy has been mentioned by others. So, good job, Leslie, getting him booked. I'm excited. Let's look at these questions. Remember, if you want to answer a question, and shout out to Gabe, who's been doing a great job helping Frank with questions. You know what I want to see? We typically run with like a 3-question format. It can be more. I can scale down my answers. I kind of inflate my answers to fill time. because we've got a rough time on this show of somewhere around 20 minutes, and that's what seems to work. But if I had 5 questions, I would answer them shorter. If I had 50 questions, I would answer them shorter. Totally fine. I want to see more people asking questions. Yesterday, we talked a bit about skepticism. And so today's questions are follow-ups. What role does discernment play in one's skepticism? Or what's the difference between skepticism and discernment? I think it's perspective. To be discerning in what you do and what you choose is to be skeptical of your options. To be discerning in who you spend time with is to be skeptical of certain people and less skeptical of others. I think they're tied in. I think discernment is a fancy word that suggests skepticism, being skeptical. And we're all skeptical. We're all, what's the opposite of skeptical? Gullible. Even those of us that are gullible still have skeptical tendencies in some area. No one believes everything that everyone says. If I tell you that the sky is purple, you're not going to believe me. No matter how gullible you are, how young you are. If a kid knows their colors and you say the sky is purple, they're going to say, no, it's not. Right? This is something that's inherent in humanity. Why complicate things? Isn't it easier to just do as we're told? It might be simpler, but who do you listen to over others? Right? Stacy says, if the sky is purple, you're watching the aurora borealis, or the northern lights. Yeah, good point. Good point. If you're doing what others are telling you, that's probably not going to line up with your goals and who you are. So a good part of the complexity of being in a society is balancing your wants and needs with others' wants and needs. And we've all known people who are good at that and people who are not. And the people who are not can be either end of the spectrum. Selfishness is not good, but neither is completely ignoring your own needs to the benefit of others. It seems heroic and selfless, but what I have found through personal experience, and doing this myself a lot, is that most people who are ignoring their own needs to the benefit of others on a routine basis are hiding from something. So you can't just make other people a priority. You've got to be the priority, at least some of the time. You have to be the most important person to you, because that's what other people need around you. Doesn't mean every moment, but overall, you have to take care of yourself. Here's a great example of why. Well, let's take the cliche example. You've got to put out your own oxygen mask before you help others with theirs on an airplane, right? Because if you pass out, you can't help anybody. What about the example a parent sets for their child? If you look at studies about behavior that is learned, there are so many parents out there who think, oh, I'm going to do this for my kids at my own expense. But if you ask them, would you want your child to do that? They would say no. But that's what you're teaching them. The place where I think we understand this the most is in romantic relationships. You watch parents struggle together, But that's what the kids learn, and they grow up and they seek those relationships because that's what they were taught from a very young age. This is what's normal. This is what's right. This is what they've been conditioned to seek out and understand. So you can't do what other people are telling you. You have to figure out what you want. You have to figure out how to get it, and you have to work towards it. And one of the parameters that you have is to not step on other people's toes too much to get it. Because sometimes you got to step on people's toes. Every time Whistlekick sells a sparring helmet, we're taking a sale from somebody else. Nobody's out there buying extra sparring helmets. I get that. And just as I'm okay with that, because we're not doing anything unethical, we're not lying, we're not putting down other companies. Those other companies that make sparring helmets are trying to keep us from doing that. They're not, hopefully, disparaging us. They're not being shady about it. And that's one of the reasons I like sales, capitalism. If everyone's doing their job right, it makes everybody better. That took a little bit of a turn. How do you practice skepticism without turning into Oscar the Grouch? Well, that's a great question. I'm going to drink some coffee while I think of that. So what do we know about Oscar the Grouch? He was grumpy. He lived in a trash can. He had this persona of being kind of a cliche old man who had lost faith with society. If you look at the world from a Buddhist perspective, you would say that pain comes from wanting things to be different than they are, not accepting the current reality. And I get that, because there are a lot of times that the reality in front of me sucks, at least in certain aspects. And I want it to be different, and that causes pain, whatever kind of pain. To be skeptical is to believe that the world is different than what is being presented to you. But that doesn't mean that you can't have your mind changed. It doesn't mean that you can't accept new information. Oscar the Grouch believes the worst. He continues to expect that the world will be a negative place, that whatever new information he gains will reinforce his preconceived notion that the world sucks. There's an amount of skepticism that you can apply, and in a certain way, where people will be accepting of it. But if every time someone tells you something new, you don't believe it, or you say, I want to go research that, or where did you get that information? That becomes tiring. Because when you present information to someone, you are, in some way, hopefully, saying, this is something I believe. I have a reason to believe that it is true. I have already applied some skepticism to it. And this is where it becomes complicated, because today, most people do not have a broadly applied element of skepticism in the way they take in information. We really suck at acquiring new facts today, because most of what we get information-wise comes through social media. And not everything that is presented on social media is presented accurately. And you see people presenting information not that changes their mind, but reinforces their worldview. And a lot of this has been orchestrated, a lot of it is intentional. I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but I think you know what I mean. I think you know where I'm going with that. So how do you take all this in without being Oscar the Grouch? If you assume everything is wrong and you try to validate it quietly and then decide whether or not it warrants telling the person who shared it with you that it's wrong or right, you're fine. Because some people will tolerate being told they're wrong. Others will not. You owe it to yourself to figure things out. But that doesn't mean you have to tell other people. And unless it's information that's being given to you that you need to act on quickly or at all, it doesn't matter. If someone tells you that let's make up something ridiculous. There's a new soda introduced on the market that has no calories and will make your vision better, and it tastes great, and it's free. You're gonna say, that doesn't make sense. I'm not buying that, literally or figuratively, and maybe you go do some research. Now, if the person who told you about it is really committed and no, you gotta check it out, maybe once you find some information that invalidates that idea, maybe you go back to them. Maybe you say, this isn't quite true, here's an article. But the more passionate they are and the less important they are in your life, maybe you don't do that. Maybe you just let them believe. Not all falsehoods are wrong or bad. Nothing wrong with a kid believing in Santa. Kids will become skeptical of Santa as they get older. They don't turn into Oscar the Grouch about it. They just one day realize, hey, this doesn't add up. You gotta trust people. One of the things that is important to me that I do as often as I can is I try to assume the best of people. If something is going wrong, if someone is treating me in a way that I don't like, rather than just getting upset or writing a long, nasty email, which used to be my method of choice, because I'm pretty good with words. I would eviscerate people in an email. I stop and I say, okay, what's their motivation? How did this go wrong in the way I'm receiving it versus the way they intended it? Because I believe everyone is good and they're trying to do the best with where they're at. But we have different experiences and different understandings and different abilities to process information and different goals, and all of that. So that leads to different actions and different understandings of the same action. And in giving people the benefit of the doubt that way, it's really saved me from making some embarrassing statements, sending emails, things like that. So, there we go. Hopefully that answers this question. Your homework coming at you in a moment. Remember, subscribe, turn on notifications. Go check out everything that we've got for sale at whistlekick.com. There are a handful of new items. Later this morning, I will be putting up a few more. We are trying to turn over the entire, hey, there's a cat here. We're trying to turn over the entire apparel collection in the next few weeks. That takes some time, but we're doing it. Everything we do now is limited edition, and we are telling you how long you have to get it. Right there in the title. If you haven't picked up a copy of the Martial Artist Handbook, please do. Leave a review, share it with others. Let's see how far we can push that book. If you want to ask a question, drop it below or email me, jeremy@whistlekick.com, and I'll answer it on the next episode, which happens every weekday morning, 6:30 a.m. Eastern on YouTube. Now, for your homework. Yesterday, I asked you to take a look at when you were skeptical and when others were skeptical. Just understand how skepticism was working for you and around you. Hopefully you did that. And if you've done that, then the next step is to consider where to change that. Are you too skeptical? Are you not skeptical enough? Do you understand how to process information? For example, if you read something online that you say, that sounds weird, I'm not sure, is part of your process to do some research, to go to, say, Snopes, or there are a handful of others that have popped up, especially around government and politics. Do you check things out? Should you? Is that important to you? Everybody's got to spend their time in the way that makes sense. So you can consider whether or not something makes sense for you. But everyone should have a process as they decide whether or not something is likely true or not and how it impacts them in their lives. I hope you have a great day. I will see you back here tomorrow, bright and early. Take care. Peace.